Yassas. Welcome to Greek Like Me, the podcast about all things Greek. I'm your host, Pamela Diodes Wood. Email us at stealthgreek@gmail.com to share comments, questions, and stories about Greek's Greekness or your own ethnic background. Happy New Year to Orthodox Christians. The Ecclesiastical New Year of the Orthodox Church begins September 1st. This topic was requested by Douglas John, and at first I wavered. I'm aware of the day. It comes up once a year in church. But I've never thought about it. It's just always there, like Stewardship Day or Labor Day. I acknowledge it, appreciate it's there. But how much did I really know about it before I started looking into it? It's the normal background of everyday life. It's easy to take it for granted in our super busy world, like the hectic holiday mayhem that leads up to January 1st, and quickly ticked off New Year's resolutions we forget before the month is over. I found it's a bigger part of the lives of Greeks and other Orthodox Christians than some of us realize, like me, and gives some insight into a religion that remains a mystery to many people in the larger population. And history is always fascinating. The first Sunday closer to September 1st is when most people return to the Greek Orthodox churches after vacation. Scores return from the mother country. I'm sure this is true all over the diaspora, not just in the U.S. All of a sudden, Sunday school is up and running. Goya announces its calendar for the year. Not Goya, the Spanish food company founded in the United States, although we live on their black beans. Goya, the Greek Orthodox Youth Association, sports, Greek dancing, singing, hymnology, and good works. September is when the ministries kick off the new year, and the annual cycle of feast days that we celebrate in the Orthodox Church begins. The Ecclesiastical New Year is a time of reflection and fresh starts, similar to January 1st, only with a strongly spiritual bent. It's all about church and the Orthodox faith. It's marked in church with prayers of gratitude for the year that's ended and the one just beginning. The priest gives the sermon on fresh starts, including a new devotion to God and world community. And we recognize a very special saint who we'll talk about later. But why September 1st? There are several reasons. The month of September is traditionally the end of summer and the start of harvest, as well as the time of planting seeds for next year's crop. In ancient times, this represented the new year. It's referenced in the Bible in Exodus chapter 23, verse 16, where September, or what is called Tishrei in the Jewish calendar, is associated with the earth's creation story, as recounted in Genesis. In Exodus, it's the month when Jews entered the Promised Land. In chapter 12, verse 2, it's named the beginning of months as set down by God. And in chapter 23, verse 16, it's referred to as the time of harvest, the end of the year and the beginning of the new one. The Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, is a 2-day celebration which usually falls in September every year, but that celebration is movable. In 2024, for example, it begins the evening of October 2nd to Friday, October 4th. It's when Jews celebrate God's creation of the world and ask for forgiveness for whatever missteps they've taken in the previous year. Remember, the original followers of Jesus were devout Jews, as was Jesus. He was a reformer, designated as Messiah by his followers and as a prophet by everyone else. But Christianity first spread as a sect of Judaism before it was designated a separate religion. So many of the Jewish holy days continue to be maintained. Later, some were dropped and others were adapted to fit into the new belief system. Our Ecclesiastical New Year pretty much kind of lines up with Rosh Hashanah. Another reason for the September start of the Orthodox New Year is the indictum, or indictus, or indiction. I've seen all of these while researching, but we'll stick with indictum. This was an imperial decree laid out by the Roman Empire from the time of Caesar Augustus. He was emperor from a few years before the birth of Jesus until around 14 CE or AD. credit for instituting the decree is often given to Emperor Constantine the Great, who continued the tradition. He ruled during the early 4th century CE, popular with Greek people for shifting imperial power away from Rome to Constantinople. What a smart guy. And for making it legal for Christians to practice their religion alongside the ancient religions. No, he was not the dude who outlawed the ancient religions, which is a topic for another day. There was, of course, a nearly 300-year gap between Caesar Augustus and Constantine the Great, but in the Orthodox Church, Saint Constantine is such a towering presence. I can understand how he gets the credit. Legalizing Christianity, shifting power to the east, the legend of the cross emblazoned in the sky before he did battle with his rival, and finally converting to Christianity. Constantine deserves a 2-part episode. What sort of decree was the indictum? I read multiple articles trying to get that straight. Indictum has been translated from Latin as declared or proclaimed, or even order as in, I, the emperor, order this. I also saw it defined as imposing something, which may resonate with folks because it has to do with taxes. The indictum was a tax decree that was imposed every 15 years. Its purpose was the support of the empire and financing the Roman military. Roman citizens were obligated to pay the designated sum to run the government of the empire, erect statues to the emperor, and provide for the army that was expected to maintain order or attack and absorb more territory. September 1st was the date the emperor officially set the annual tax rate for the next 15 years. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if our taxes were calculated and stayed the same for 15 years at a time. I don't know about you, New Jersey taxes are ridiculous. 15 years was not coincidentally the deployment commitment of Roman soldiers. Why the Christian Church would align its Ecclesiastical New Year with the start of tax season as designated by Rome makes little sense to me. But perhaps aligning itself with the civil calendar of Rome made things easier for folks who lived within the confines of the sprawling empire, because that's who they paid taxes to. There's another reason for the September start of the ecclesiastical year, and probably the most emotional and symbolic reason for Orthodox Christians. Some background. Traditionally in Jewish culture, the age of 30 is when a man comes into his full strength, according to the Mishnah, which is the main text of the Talmud according to Chabad.org. In the Bible, that's the age when many Jewish men become powerful. Saul and David both became kings at 30. Joseph became powerful in the court of the Pharaoh at that age. According to the Bible, Book of Numbers, chapter 4, verse 3, 30 was the earliest age men could become priests and enter into service. Some of the prophets were called by God at age 30, including Ezekiel, John the Baptist, and Jesus. Okay, I'm getting to it. St. Nicholas Russian Orthodox Church in McKinney, Texas says Jesus went to temple to preach during the Feast of Thanksgiving, the movable feast of Rosh Hashanah, which the Orthodox Church later pinned down to September 1st. One Orthodox source stated it was traditional for men to read from Scripture in the temple in their 30th year. Cantor Meredith Greenberg of Temple Ner Tamid in Bloomfield, New Jersey, explained to me study of the Torah begins much earlier. By age 13, observant Jews are expected to be able to discuss the sacred texts. Now, I've been to several bat and bar mitzvahs where the celebrated 13-year-old read from the Torah in the temple. In the Gospels, Jesus goes to the temple as a child and discusses Jewish law with his elders. This seems like a tangent, but we wanted to keep the record straight. At any rate, in the Gospel of Luke, Jesus went to the temple in his hometown of Nazareth and proclaimed his ministry in his 30th year, the year he came into his greatest strength. In chapter 4, verse 16, it states he entered the synagogue, as was his custom on the Sabbath, and stood up to read. He was handed a scroll and read from the 61st chapter of the book of the prophet of Isaiah. According to Luke chapter 4, verse 17 through 21, he read, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the good tidings to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and opening of the prison to those who are bound." He may sound unrecognizable to some in light of weird preachings of certain ministers in my home country, the U.S., but this is what he read, according to the Gospels. Isaiah goes on to mention the day of vengeance of our God, which is maybe the part they focus on. I don't know. When he finished reading, Jesus handed the scroll back to the priest, and in Luke said to the congregation, "Today the scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." This day is cited as September 1st by earlier Christians to remember the start of Jesus' ministry. So it fits that the Orthodox Ecclesiastical New Year would begin as a commemoration of the day Jesus began his ministry in his home synagogue. It was 325 CE or AD that the First Ecumenical Council met to designate September 1st as the official start of the church year. The council met in Nicaea, or Nicaea, an ancient Greek city in what is now Turkish territory. The council's purpose was to find unity within the young church whose adherents were scattered over what is now called the Middle East, Greece, Egypt, Ethiopia, India, Italy. Christian bishops were sent to Nicaea to meet and hash out the important details, get on the same page. We go into a little more detail about the Council of Nicaea in past episodes. Why are there two Easters and icons in Orthodox Christianity? Every year on September 1st, the Ecumenical Patriarch, currently Bartolomeo, first among equals of the Orthodox Patriarchs, joins the Holy and Sacred Synod to celebrate the day. The Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America explains, the highest ecclesiastical authority of the Church of Greece is the Holy Synod of the Hierarchy, composed of the Archbishop of Athens and all Greece as president, and all of the bishops who administer metropolitines. So they're a collection of metropolitans, which is a step up from a regular bishop, under the leadership of the Archbishop of Athens and Greece. The Holy Synod and the Ecumenical Patriarch meet at the Patriarchal Church of St. George the Martyr, located in the Phanar. The Phanar was the city's quarter for Christian Greeks in Constantinople during the Ottoman Empire. The city now called Istanbul. Unless you're Greek, then it is still Constantinople. The name change came about in March of 1930. In the Church of St. George the Martyr, the Holy Synod and the Ecumenical Patriarch venerate the icon of the Holy Panagia Pamakaristos, reportedly a gorgeous mosaic from the Byzantine Church of Panagia Pamakaristos. This Byzantine Church of the Panagia is where the Patriarchate sheltered after the fall of Constantinople when the Ottoman army invaded. There was brutal violence throughout the city, and churches and the clergy were particularly targeted. In the Church of the Panagia Pamakaristos, our faith and the leader of our religion survived the catastrophe of Constantinople. After venerating the icon of the Panagia, these Orthodox Church leaders begin the commemoration of the Ecclesiastical New Year by formally proclaiming the New Year and participating in a special liturgy. Afterwards, they sign the Patriarchal and Synodal Tome for the Indictus, an ancient practice that began in the time of Constantine the Great. Throughout the Orthodox world, September 1st, there are special prayers, hymns, and church readings, serving as a continual reminder of the utmost significance of renewal and the ongoing pursuit of God's grace in our lives, according to Benjamin Cub, Theoria website. There are 8 designated readings, 3 from the Old Testament, which are read during Vespers, the evening of August 31st, because according to the Bible and Orthodox traditions, says Father Richard of holymare.org, each new day begins after the setting of the sun. This, of course, is handed down to us from Jewish tradition. The next day, Orthros, called Matins in Western churches, and during the Divine Liturgy, there are 5 readings from the New Testament. That quote from the Gospel of Luke presenting the beginning of Christ's ministry is one of them. And just a note, Orthodox don't call the primary church service Mass. We call it Divine Liturgy. On September 1st, Orthodox Christianity also celebrates the feast day of one of our most revered saints, Saint Symeón the Stylite. Saint Symeón was a devout Christian from Syria. He climbed a stone pillar, or stylos, 16 or so miles from the city of Aleppo, and lived out a life of extreme asceticism from there. Stylite means pillar dweller or pillar saint. It was an extreme form of self-discipline and abstention from everything but what was absolutely necessary to maintain life. Father George Poulos, in the third volume of his quartet of books, Orthodox Saints, said Symeón stood out high against the sky as a reminder to all who passed that salvation came from God. His followers provided him with what little he required to survive and carry out his vigil. The narrowness of the stylos allowed Symeón to stand or sit, but not to lie down. He devoted his time there, 40 years, to prayer and meditation. His chosen home, which offered no protection from the elements, became a destination for Christian pilgrims, the hopeless, and no doubt the curious. He preached from his perch and is said to have inspired many with his sacrifices to his spirituality. He's considered the greatest and most fervent ascetic in Christianity, and he's credited with a number of miraculous healings. Many of his most devoted followers over the years tried to persuade him to abandon his stylos and bring his ministry into more populated areas. But he refused, only leaving his stylos upon his death in 459. According to Father Poulos, the ruins of the pillar of Saint Symeón remain, and that location in Syria has become a shrine. He set the bar for the many ascetics who followed in the centuries after his death. He fully expressed the desire to sacrifice everything for pursuit of his faith. So celebrating him for sacrifices the vast majority of us couldn't even imagine is a fitting time when we're supposed to rededicate ourselves to our faith. But my favorite part of the Ecclesiastical New Year is the yearly encyclical of His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartolomeo, or as he's come to be known, the Green Patriarch, because he has called on Orthodox Christians and anyone else who'll listen to take action to protect the environment. He has strongly linked the Orthodox faith to caring for God's creation, says seasonsofcreation.org. It was his predecessor, Patriarch Demetrios, in 1989, who first called for the Ecclesiastical New Year to be designated World Day of Prayer for the Care of Creation. Bartolomeo took up the cause with gusto. He says, respect for the environment is an act of doxology, while the destruction of creation is offense against the Creator, entirely irreconcilable with the basic tenets of Christian theology. In his 2020 encyclical, he wrote, "We are experiencing the unfolding destruction of the natural environment, of biodiversity, of flora and fauna, of the pollution of aquatic resources and the atmosphere, the progressing collapse of climate balance. It is apparent that the protection of the common good, of the integrity of the natural environment, is the common responsibility of all inhabitants of the earth." I love this guy. And everything he says fits into the celebration of the Ecclesiastical New Year. The celebration of creation, the feast of thanksgiving for the harvest, the start of the ministry of Jesus, who laid down our responsibilities as Christians, as human beings, to do good, be kind, be helpful, and love every living thing. The Ecclesiastical New Year puts the 200 million Orthodox Christians throughout the world on the same page. We celebrate the same feast days, the same saints' days, the same Bible readings are shared by every Orthodox church each day. The vlog of the Good Shepherd Orthodox Church in Victoria, Australia explains the aim of the church calendar is to guide our prayer in a particular way. It provides a framework of support and helps preserve unity among the Orthodox faithful. Victor Gabriel, in an online article, reminds us that unity is meant to encompass self-sacrifice, beauty, and self-restraint. It's a time for reflection, prayer, and rededication to God, to our fellow human beings, to the poor, the captives, the suffering, to justice, and to the environment. Theatira.org.uk says, the new year is a fresh start regarding how we pray, how we treat our neighbors, how honest we are with ourselves, how we care for and appreciate God's creation. Whatever their religion, faith, or belief system, good people will always try to do better. And as humans, we sometimes need a specific starting point, a mark on the calendar to remind us, like the New Year. I haven't given Ecclesiastical New Year the attention I probably could have up to now. And I'm grateful to Douglas John, once again, for reminding me what faith should really be about, stepping outside of ourselves for the sake of others. And in the Orthodox faith, following the teachings of Jesus gets us there. Message us about your own faith or philosophy that helps you step outside of yourself for the good of others. We'd like to share what you have to say. Chronia Pola to all of the Symeons celebrating their name day, September 1st, and Happy New Year. Thanks for listening. Greek Like Me is a Stealth Greek production. This episode was researched, written, and narrated by me, your host, Pamela Deodes Wood. Our producer, photographer, and post-production editor is Douglas John. Our thanks to Cantor Meredith Greenberg of Temple Ner Tamid of Bloomfield, New Jersey for her time and for clarifying Jewish religious tradition. Visit our website at stealthgreek.com for resources, photos, links, and more. Please rate, like, and subscribe. It helps us get noticed so we can keep making content about Greeks and Greek culture. Find Greek Like Me on Facebook and on Instagram at Greek_like_me. See you next time. Yassas. I'm wondering if all the background noise is because I had the microphone too far away from my face. Okay, that didn't work. It has to stay in the middle, it seems. I've got no choice at all. Sounding.